And turning the mic over to you, Audsie, my friend. The mic is all yours.
Thank you, Lynn, so much. And thank you for all that you do. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm so appreciative of you, Lynn, for running the show here, pretty much every day. I think you take one day off a week. How dare you? But thank you so much for everything. You are just a gift. I just appreciate you so much. And you do all this with, I've never heard you complain. I've never heard you say you would not want to do it. You just are here and truly helpful. I am inspired by you. So thank you. And yes, I am reading A Course in Mysticism and Miracles, Begin Your Spiritual Adventure by John Mundy. And last week we were in chapter 6, and we had read a quote. Oh, wait, are we past chapter 6? I just moved my bookmark and now I messed my page. Here we are. Yeah, we're in chapter 8. Not chapter 6, we're in chapter 8. And we read a quote last week from the Manual for Teachers, chapter 21. I'm going to repeat that. It's entitled Twice Removed. God does not understand words, for they were made by separated minds to keep them in the illusion of separation. Words can be helpful, particularly for the beginner, in helping concentration and facilitating the exclusion, or at least the control, of extraneous thoughts. Let us not forget, however, that words are but symbols of symbols. They are thus twice removed from reality. So that's just the reminder that it's not about the words. It's not about, these sentences that I form that then intellectually I get these aha moments, which those have been helpful. Yes, for me, truly helpful. However, I know now it's time to take that beyond the words because of the felt direct experience that I have experienced, for lack of a better word, um, and and really feeling something, not being afraid to feel something, not running away, not masking the feeling. So that's where I've been at, where I'm just facing things head on, and through that, I feel like just more of reality comes shining through. At least that's been my experience. And the reality being peace and happiness and just being content that what I'm seeing isn't the story I've made up. I don't need to be in a story of thoughts and words. I mean, when I am, that's okay. I'm still learning. I'm still here and I am still in my mind training, and I'm 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 remembering. I'm remembering. So, thank you. So, let's go on here. Indeed, the word mystic is related to the word mute. Both are derived from the Greek root mustes, meaning closed mouth. That's Mustes. Maybe mustes, mustes. Words create distinctions and thus duality. Well, that makes sense anyway, because well, I know with the English language, like we have a lot of words that can mean different things, and I mean that is I've heard like that English is one of the tougher languages to understand. I mean, we just some of our verbs are different, and we don't do rules for this. Some rules go with that. So very difficult to say that language is like somebody's language is truth, because you have translations of things, and I know that meaning can get lost in translation, right? We know this, and I know this when I'm talking to people, and sometimes from their response that they're not thinking the same thing I'm thinking. So there is a lot of separation when we're using words. So words create distinctions and thus duality. Naming something sets it apart and separates it as it distinguishes the thing named from other things. Once we know that a chair is a chair, we will never again look at a chair and not think chair as something separate from furniture. We don't consciously think about this. It just appears in its immediacy. Whether written or spoken, words are physical things, in quotes, the word physical, involving the duality of subject and object. A written word is visible, and a spoken word is a series of sound vibrations. But both are physical in nature. Rod Chalberg, a friend of mine who is a medical doctor, described his experience of having a stroke like this. When I had my stroke, I could not speak for a while. I saw things and recognized them, but I could not name them or speak about what they were. I looked at the office, chairs, and people, but they made no sense to me. What I saw lost all reality for me, and I was just observing. I was disconnected from the reality of the ego, and I had no fear, only confusion. I did not know what things were for or what they were. It seems that if we cannot name something, then it loses its meaning and reality for us. Objects lose their value as separate entities. When we take the names away from objects, their reality is lost, and for a moment we have no ego, because the ego needs to name things in order to create this world. There is no value in this world until I choose to give a name to something. Once named, the object has value and meaning, but only to the ego. Well, that's very interesting about him when he had his stroke and couldn't speak. I couldn't imagine that, because the only experience I have is in a moment not remembering the word I have for something, like, or that I'm trying to say, which is quite often. In my experience, I used to be able to communicate very, I feel like a much better, where I just, I don't know, I just think I just I didn't have this fog that took away the words. But now I don't mind that the words aren't there. I mean, sometimes in my mind I will still see an image of what I'm trying to say, but there isn't the name attached to it. So I don't know, having the image still, I think, is a separateness as well, because I'm still seeing the form as a separation. But it doesn't bother me so much if I don't remember the words. I just call everything thing, and then the people around me have to figure it out, and it's fun. So I couldn't imagine not being able to speak at all, because I think I rely on speaking a lot. So who wants to know is the next section. I had a similar experience after viral encephalitis put me in a coma for several days. I awoke by myself late at night in a hospital bed with only a small red light glowing over my head. The first thing I did was to raise my right hand and bring it around in front of my face. I said, "That is a hand." It really was profound. I wondered how I knew what the name of this object was. How did I even know what language was? How did I know anything at all? Then a voice from somewhere deep inside said, "Who wants to know?" Who was asking the question? That was the most fascinating question of all. Have you ever tried that? Who wants to know, or who's thinking this? It can be unsettling, at least it was for me at first, because it's like, well, at first it's sort of like, well, I am me, Audrey. But in inquiring further to that comes sort of that unsettling feeling at first, because it's like, well, where am I, like this Audrey? So it's a very interesting question, and I love that he's bringing it in here. Who wants to know? Giving value to anything of the world, an object, a place, a person, can turn that thing into a block to higher awareness. Pseudo-diagnosis, a blah, blah, blah. I can't say it. I can't say this. It's Dionysius. Dionysius. Pseudo something, a theologian, philosopher, and Christian mystic of the 5th century, used the analogy of a sculptor cutting away that which is superfluous to get to the identity buried beneath the surface reality. He sounds like the Tao Te Ching when he writes, "That one which is beyond all thought is inconceivable by all thought." And Tversky, an 18th century Ukrainian Hasidic scholar, reflects the teaching of the Course when he says, "Mind comes from this sublime and completely unified source above. It is divided only as it enters into the universe of distinction." That's beautiful. I like that. That is really okay. So completely ununified it is divided only as it enters into the universe of distinction. And that, to me, that's pretty cool. I mean, we have this complete, mind that comes out of this unified source of God. And so to me, that means God is mind, even though he doesn't know language, and that I feel like God's being is my being, and he uses me and can use language, or maybe it's the Holy Spirit or Jesus, and not God. But I don't need to worry about trying to distinguish that. Try to define love. You cannot do it. You can write beautiful poetry about it, but that does not define it. Socrates said that while he could not show us the good, he might be able to show us what a child of the good looks like. So we could have some idea about what the parent, the thing itself, looks like. Still, the picture is not the thing itself. American mystic Robert Adams, speaking of his mystical experience, said, "I'm trying my best to speak intelligently and trying to use words to explain what happened. But you can't." Rumi points out that the here and now can be described only by words that lose their meaning and are swept out the window. in the face of a mystical experience. 13th century Italian theologian Thomas Aquinas is regarded as the father of the Catholic Church. His Summa Theologica is perhaps the greatest of all medieval theological treatises. Before Thomas, only St. Augustine played such a significant role in formulating Catholic doctrine. Aquinas had a mystical vision 2 years before his death, after which he said, "All that I have written is so much straw." Then he ceased writing altogether. After this experience, all he could say was, "God is that He is." Wow. That hits home a little bit because I know in a previous life, gosh, this was back in my 20s, so 30 years ago, I guess, that I used to write all the time, like every day, and published writing, and just, I was very, very alive in the writing. I loved putting my fingers on the keyboard or to the page, and just stories would come out, and it was just a beautiful, fun time. But I just also gave up writing. It just became a whole bunch of words, and my journey just went to another space. But I'm grateful for having that, because it puts into context when other people are describing their experiences. I have something that I can relate to, which then I feel helps me understand what others are saying. The next section is called Speechless. We say God is, and then we cease to speak, for in that knowledge words are meaningless. There are no lips to speak them, and no part of mind sufficiently distinct to feel that it is now aware of something not itself. It has united with its source, and like its source itself, it merely is. And that's from the workbook, part 1. We say God is, and then we cease to speak, because in the face of God, nothing can be said. Words are completely inadequate. Angela of Foligno, a 13th century Italian Franciscan who gained so much respect that she became known as Mistress of Theologians, wrote, "The beholding, whereby the soul can behold no other thing, is so profound that it grieves me that I can say nothing of it. It is not a thing which can be touched or imagined, for it is ineffable." In the same way, American spiritual teacher Myrtle Fillmore, who, along with her husband Charles, founded the Unity Church movement, decided that by changing her mind, she could cure herself of tuberculosis, which she did. Myrtle writes, "I have come so close to breaking right through into the wonderful things of the kingdom, and at times I seem most bursting with beautiful, powerful realities that I would have humanity see and realize. But these great impressions and surges of power don't seem to put themselves into words, and I can but radiate them." Wow, how gorgeous is that? At times I seem most bursting with beautiful, powerful realities. But these great impressions and surges of power don't seem to put themselves into words, and I can but radiate them. What a beautiful, beautiful feeling that evokes in me a radiation that makes me think of the flash of light, the blast of light, the light that we are, that I am. Mysticism is about healing the mind. A sick mind cannot find its way home because it is lost and lacking in clarity and purpose. The main thing is that by removing the blocks to an awareness of love's presence, we can let love shine through. We don't have to figure everything out. What is important is the love, and love can find a way. Ooh, love can find a way. I don't know what song that is. I think I just made it up. I hope they don't come crashing down my door for a record deal. Man, that'll take time, won't it? All right, the next section, the decision maker. The power to decide is our last remaining freedom as prisoners of the world. We need to be decision makers in this world because it is a divided world. There is no decision making in heaven because there is no division, no right and no wrong. The choice is easy when the results are clearly seen. Therefore, mystics learn how to decide in favor of what they call right-mindedness. And right-mindedness leads to one-mindedness. Here is a simple diagram showing how this process works. And in the center, there's an arrow up, there's an arrow down, and the decision maker sits between the two arrows. And when you look at the arrow above, the spirit, heaven, or mind, and below the decision maker, the words say ego, body, mind. So it's just really showing this higher or lower level thinking, for lack of a better word. Sharon, you can't hear? Is this better? Anyway, hopefully you can still hear me, but I'm almost done, so.
I think it's me. Is it me?
I'm not sure.
Now I could hear you. Now I could hear you.
All right. Well, great.
Okay.
Thank you. So at any given moment, we, the decision makers, are free to choose between ego, body, or mind, that's separation and conflict, or spirit, heaven, mind, oneness and peace. As we'll discuss in chapter 14, the body is the ego's chosen home. The body is obtrusive and sometimes so dominant that we can't help but think we are bodies and nothing more. Fortunately, everyone also has a mind. And within every mind, there is a spark of divine light that can, given the opportunity, bring us back to life again. In many, only the spark remains, the Course observes, for the great rays are obscured, yet God has kept the spark alive so that the rays can never be completely forgotten. And that's from the text, chapter 10 in A Course in Miracles. And that's the end of that section. Well, there's a little quote there, but it's by Buddha, Behavioral Science. Behave as though the self does not exist. And that is, I still have 4 minutes, so I could actually finish this section. Sometimes the opportunity for awakening comes crashing and burning all around us. It can also come slowly and gently. The good news is that love waits on welcome, not on time. There is a way of finding certainty right here and now, the Course assures us. Refuse to be a part of fearful dreams, whatever form they take, for you will lose identity in them. And that's from text chapter 28. Mystics struggle to awaken from dreaming. The proof that we are not yet fully awake is the presence of guilt and fearful, ego-driven dreams. Mystics are simply those who are developing an ever deeper trust in God. The first change before dreams disappear, the Course explains, is that your dreams of fear are changed to happy dreams. And that's from text chapter 18. And now from text chapter 11, think like him, the Holy Spirit, ever so slightly, and the little spark becomes a blazing light that fills your mind. This is what I just was mentioning, the flash of light. This is what I was thinking of, the blazing light. So I love this. Think of like him, the Holy Spirit, ever so slightly, and the little spark becomes a blazing light that fills your mind so that he becomes your only guest. Whenever you ask the ego to enter, you lessen his welcome. He will remain, but you have allied yourself against him. Whatever journey you choose to take, he will go with you, waiting. And I love that so much, the blazing light that fills my mind. That's from the tiny spark, and he becomes my only guest, which makes me think of the poem, The Guest House. And I'm just so delighted to have read this today. Beautiful book by John Moody. Thank you. And thank you everyone for being here. Have a great rest of the day and a wonderful upcoming weekend. I love you all, and I hand the mic back to you, Lynn. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Audsie. I so appreciate your reading this book, and it's really interesting to get to know more about John. What an interesting character he is. Oh